Our next speaker is Nadezda Amaya, who holds a MS in Agricultural and Applied Economics and an MA in Economics from Virginia Tech University. Do we have any Virginia Tech people in the room? Oh, sorry, well, okay. Go. What's, oh, we got one, okay. Nadezda has worked for various CGIAR centers, such as CIMMYT, the Institute of Maize and Wheat Improvement Center, and Bioversity International in the Latin American region, mainly in the countries of Bolivia, Peru, Mexico, and Guatemala. Nadezda is from Bolivia, and she is currently working for CIMMYT in Mexico. Her areas of expertise include agricultural research, analysis of value chains, markets, gender, and agribusiness development for different crops such as maize, roots and tubers, beans, and what she'll be talking about today, underutilized and neglected crops. Since the early days of ECHO, thanks to Dr. Martin Price, ECHO has been promoting underutilized and neglected crops, and that's always been a key aspect of our work. So we have been excited to see the research and work Nadezda has been part of conducting and researching in Guatemala with Chaya, learning about the value chain of Chaya in the country and ways to promote it in a culture that historically has eaten it. Nadezda, I just want to say, it is such a pleasure to have you here and have you back at ECHO. Join me in welcoming her.
Thank you. Okay. Good morning. Can you hear me well? Sometimes I speak very low. First, I want to thank ECHO for inviting me to this great conference. Last year I couldn't participate, but this year I will present my work in Guatemala. So today I will focus on talking about neglected and underutilized species called Chaya. I don't know if some of you know Chaya? So that will be nice. I'm happy to know that because in Guatemala not many people know Chaya. So my presentation, I will start with an introduction, background information about the importance of agricultural markets and what neglected and underutilized species are. Chaya, my work in Guatemala, where I lived for 2 years, and some concluding remarks. I don't know, how many of you know what a CGIAR Center is? Okay, so good. So in some, I'm sorry, this is in Spanish. I didn't realize I didn't translate this one. That's the only one in Spanish, though. So CGIAR Center is a consortium of 15 research centers around the world. And they are located in, as you can see in the map, in different parts of the world. In Latin America, we have 3. CIMMYT, they focus on maize and wheat. CIAD, they focus on tropical plants. And CIP, they focus on tubers and roots. I work for CIMMYT, and I work for CIP. And also Bioversity, they are based in Rome, but they have actions in different parts of the world. And I also work for CIFOR, they work on forestry. So it's an interesting research group of research centers. So they focus on reducing poverty, improving nutritional and food security, and improving the use of natural resources. I will make an introduction about the importance, as you know, the importance of climate change and how agricultural productivity is reducing given the current practices that farmers have. But also I would make an emphasis of the use of plants. I don't know if you can see, there is around the world 300,000 known plant species. Only 100,000 of them are used by humankind. Only 3,000 are edible. Only 5,000 are used as food. And only 120 are important additional national scale. 30 provide 90% of the plant calorie, and only 3 are the ones who provide 50% of that consumption, which is rice, wheat, and maize, which is kind of scary, right, if we depend only on so few crops. So the shrinking of the food basket is causing greater food and nutrition insecurity around the world. So that's why it's important to start promoting nutrition-sensitive crops as the neglected and underutilized species that promotes eco as well. So it's also important, the market part, because market failure can determine the rate and pattern of growth. So it's important also to make these crops available in the market. So as you might know, well, as all of you know, poor small-scale farmers have limited access to markets due to different factors, like lack of resources, lack of levels of production, low market power, expensive imperfect information, and also active discrimination, especially against women, but also indigenous people. So that's why it's important to help them to connect to the market. So, and there are great market opportunities if we start focusing not only on the supply part, but also on the demand. I work with agronomists for many years, and from what I learned from them, they want to produce more and better. But if you don't have a market that absorbs that production, then it's not. We want to also increase income, right? So it's important to connect them to the market. So it's important to build a link between indigenous people, native crops, and the markets so they can increase their income. So there's an important new niche of markets for native crops, which are climate-smart crops, like Chaya. So these crops are high value. They have a traditional production. They have great culinary features. They have different colors and flavors. So that's what we at Bioversity call them neglected and underutilized species, NUS. So these crops are very strategic assets for food security, livelihood improvement, and fight climate change. And the interesting part is that the hotspots of this diversity coincide with the regions where indigenous people live. So they are very important for their identity and culture. So some of you, I'm sure, do you know what neglected and underutilized species are? Have an idea? So quinoa used to be one of these crops, but now it's well known everywhere. So one feature of these crops is they are climate resilient. They are very stress tolerant, hardly crops. They adapt easily to different parts. They are very resilient. They are easy to grow. They need few inputs. They have been neglected, but they are still there, surviving somehow. So if we help them, they can increase their productivity. So these crops are also very nutritious compared to other traditional crops. And in some cases, they are even more nutritious, depending on the features. They are also medicinal. Some of them are really good for diabetes and kidney stones and different illness. So they are very good for that. But also they have a great opportunity to increase income because they are novel, they have value, they are considered superfoods, like the superalimentos, and they generate a unique opportunity for poor people to sell them in a higher value in the markets. And also it's a very important source of to help women empower women, because they are the ones who produce them, they are the ones who take care of them. Like in the Andes, we call them guardianas de la biodiversidad. They are the guardians of potato biodiversity in the Andes. And thanks to them, we have more than 2,000 varieties of potato there. So the role of women is very important for these crops. Not all the new species have all these features, but they share a lot of them. Nevertheless, they have some negative traits. And like I said, most of these traits are because science have forgotten about these crops. There are not a lot of research. There are not a lot of money to do that. Bioversity, where I work, they have been working on these crops for more than 20 years. And they are the ones who started helping promoting quinoa, like more than 20 years ago in Bolivia and Peru. So they have poor economic competitiveness against other crops. The lack of improved varieties because they are just growing there. And so because of that, it's very hard to process them and add some value. Value chains of these crops are almost inexistent or very weak. And most of these crops are considered food of the poor. Quinoa, when I grew up in the city, we didn't eat quinoa. Yeah, and you thought if you eat quinoa, you were poor because that's only for indigenous people. So there's also kind of a little bit of racism there. So that's why people don't want to consume these crops. But like now, everyone now wants quinoa, right? It's very high prices, which is a disadvantage for us in Bolivia because they are so expensive now that even though we want to eat them, we cannot afford them because they are exporting them. So that's something we have to be careful when we promote these crops, right? Because we want the people from the countries to benefit from them. And yeah, they are scarcely represented in ex situ collections, which is sad. But then these species are a global untapped wealth. They are all over the world. The estimated number of cultivated species of these crops are in different regions, include cereals, pulses, roots, tubers, vegetables. And the richness in wild news around the world can be estimated in the order of several thousands. I'm sure in Haiti and other countries they have these crops that they remember that their grandmothers told them that they were very nutritious, but some people don't eat them now anymore, or they don't know how to eat them anymore. So there's a loss of knowledge. So here are some examples of these species in Latin America. The first one is Chaya, as you might know. They also include flowers. That's a flower pumpkin. They eat a lot in Guatemala. Amaranthums, that's similar to quinoa. Then you have Ullucus. This is a root from the Andes and some different fruits. Now I will focus mostly on Chaya and on my work I have done about it. The first challenge for this work is that Chaya doesn't exist in Bolivia, so I had no idea what Chaya was when I started this work. So I had to do a lot of research to understand them. And the other challenge was that in Guatemala it's disappearing. So it was very challenging to try to find it. So in Guatemala, I work with biodiversity in this project that was funded by IFAD and the European Commission. This project focused on promoting and improving these crops in 3 countries, Guatemala, India, and Mali. And in the case of Guatemala, we focus on 2 crops, Chaya and tepari bean. And I know in ECHO you have tepari beans as well, which is an interesting crop as well because it's drought tolerant, which is very important for the regions where we work in Guatemala. So in Guatemala, we work in this area that's called Dry Corridor in the department of Chiquimula. That area is close to the border of Honduras and El Salvador. It's very hot, it's very dry, and sometimes they have extreme drought conditions, and farmers can lose everything. And they have nothing to eat. They have high rates of extreme poverty and chronic malnutrition. And for me, it was very scary to know that Guatemala has one of the highest malnutrition rates in the world compared to many countries in Africa. And Guatemala has this great diversity, so it's really hard to understand what's happening there. And so seasonal famine is very common in this area. But they have Chaya, so we wanted to understand how come they have this great plant and they are not consuming it. And given the extreme conditions, Chaya is still there. So that was interesting. So very fast, Chaya is a domesticated plant grown through Mesoamerica, Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and across other countries. It's originally from there. It has been cultivated since pre-Hispanic times in the Mayan region. In Mexico, for instance, they still eat Chaya, and it's very well known in the region, more known than in Guatemala. So these highly nutritious leaves are consumed for food and medicine, and it's highly resistant to extreme heat and drought conditions, which was perfect for the area where we were working in Guatemala. But even though it's nutritious and agronomic potential, it has been recognized for decades. There has been little research about it. In Guatemala, our partner was a university, and they have been doing research about Chaya for more than 20 years, and it was a great source of information for me. But besides doing that great work and research, nothing, no actions were taken about that, using that information, which was sad. So they have been researching Chaya for years, but not really applying any. So the Chaya has a strong potential to enhance nutrition in these communities in the dry corridor. As you can see, it's a very important source of vitamin A and C, minerals, carbs, magnesium, healthy fatty acids. Its dry protein content is higher than common beans. And in the graph, you can see that, so they compare Chaya, nutritional content of Chaya against other edible leaves similar to Chaya. Here I just put the vitamin C, but there are other vitamins and minerals that are compared. So as you can see, Chaya has 10 times more vitamin C than chard and 8 times more vitamin C than spinach. So it's really great nutritional content. So in Guatemala, so we wanted to understand what happened to these plants, given that it is too nutritious, it's easy to produce, but it's disappearing in Guatemala. So I conducted a value chain analysis of Chaya to understand why people is not consuming it and how we can help to improve that. So through this value chain analysis, I detected some key bottlenecks and market opportunities. I wanted to also determine the role of women in the production of Chaya and find opportunities to empower women as well. So through 2017, that was my work, just understanding what happened to Chaya in Guatemala. But I also went to Mexico, where Chaya in the Yucatan Peninsula is well known and highly consumed. So I wanted to understand why in Mexico didn't disappear and why it disappeared in Guatemala. One thing in Mexico is that people there are very proud of their traditions and their Mayan origin. So they take care of these things. You know, they are very proud of it. But in Guatemala, like I said, people think it's food of the poor and they don't want to eat it, and it's disappearing, which is sad. So based on that information I collected throughout 2017, I designed some interventions for Guatemala that we implemented throughout 2018. Which I thought it was great because at the end of 2017, I wasn't sure if I was going to continue working in Guatemala. And then I had a nice report of Chaya, and then nothing was going to happen. But I was happy that based on that information, I was able to implement some interventions in the country. So very fast, to do the value chain analysis, I used a methodology called Rapid Market Appraisal that is very easy, flexible to use, and relies on literature review and mainly on semi-structured interviews that you conduct across the different links of the value chain. The interesting thing about this tool is that it only asks you to do between 3 to 5 interviews per link. That doesn't sound that much, but for instance, in Guatemala City, I visited 5 markets, and each market I interviewed between 3 to 5 vendors, consumers. So in total, I interviewed more than 120 people, including knowledgeable experts who are not involved in the chain, but they know how the chain works. And one of those experts was someone from ECHO, because I found the work that ECHO does with Chaya. So I interviewed them. So I interviewed people from different countries that know about Chaya. And that's how I found out about ECHO's work. So the interviews could last between 15 minutes to 3 hours. So depending how much they knew. So just listening to that and transcribing, that's a lot of work for 120 interviews. So I also use, the market, I love visiting markets because you can see how vendors, consumers interact. So I also use direct observation, which was kind of a structure because I have to focus on what I wanted to observe. And also we conducted some consumer acceptability testing because some people in Guatemala, most people in the urban areas, they didn't know what Chaya was. So they didn't even know how it tastes. So it was important to see if people in the cities would accept it or like it. So some key findings of this work was that the value chain of Chaya was very short, composed primarily of production, basic processing, almost nothing, insignificant marketing, and decreasing consumption. Most kids, they don't know that you can eat Chaya. Even though they have it, they don't know you can eat it. So bottlenecks were detected across the value chain that hindered the promotion of Chaya. Agronomic constraints did not stand out. That was not a problem, even though this area, they don't have a lot of water and they have heat and drought, very strong heat and drought conditions. That was not a problem. Farmers, I like the phrase a farmer told me. He told me, Chaya takes care of itself. So basically, they don't really take care of Chaya that much. That shows you how much they don't require a lot of inputs or labor. So and they still have it. As you can see in the picture, the one in the below is that doesn't have so many leaves, but it doesn't die, so it's always there. You can still have something to eat, depending on the access to water. Most farmers put the plants next to where they do laundry or wash the dishes, and they use that water, and that's all they need. So also I found some critical commercialization constraints. For me, it was really hard to find Chaya in the markets. I visited more than 12 markets, and I found Chaya in 3 markets. And in every market, it was like a detective. I found 1 vendor, 2 vendors, but it was really hard to find Chaya. But they sell a lot of other leaves, as you can see in the pictures. So this happens because there is a low demand. They generate low profit. There is high transaction cost to move the Chaya to the cities. They have a weak value chain organization. Farmers are not organized, and they perish very fast, right, to transport them. So that is a problem. But lack of demand was the primary limiting factor for Chaya, for marketing Chaya. Like I mentioned before, there is a low awareness of the crop. Many people in the city had no idea what Chaya is, and even in the communities, they have seen the plant, but they don't know you can eat it. Or if they know you can eat it, they only know one way to cook it, and that's not very appealing for the kids, so that's how it's disappearing. And also there is a reluctance to grow, consume, or sell a product that's considered food of the poor. So the culture of consuming native plants in Guatemala is slowly decreasing and reaching levels of complete extinction, and which is quite sad because then you are losing a lot of knowledge and traditions. And many Mayan groups they don't know, they are losing this knowledge about these plants. So some key findings, I summarize my work of 1 whole year. So the lower price of Chaya compared to other leafy vegetables presents a great opportunity for low-income consumers in the cities and in the rural areas. Here I compared the price of Chaya and its nutritional content. As you can see, at almost half of the price of spinach, Chaya provides 8 times more vitamin C than spinach, 4 times more calcium than spinach, and 2 times more protein. So it's a very important market opportunity for Chaya. So based on these results, I focused on developing certain interventions. This is a summary of all the work we did throughout 2018. We focused on farmers. There are 4 varieties of Chaya, and based on the research, one of them is the one that has higher productivity and a little bit more nutrition than the others. So through the project, we distributed more Chaya cuttings to the communities. We also work on the processing part for the markets, but also for the households, because what we want is first farmers to eat better and then sell the surpluses that they have. And also we work with the processing industry and some culinary sector. So now I will explain all these interventions that took place last year. So we help farmers to organize. We help them to establish a cooperative of farmers, of 300 farmers. 80% of them are women. So this way we wanted to help them to promote and sell Chaya and connect farmers to the markets. But the way we established the cooperative was because we don't want them only to sell Chaya, right? Even though that was our focus, but we want them to sell other products, other flowers, native fruits. So the way we established the cooperative was very general, so they can sell other products. Then we work with the school feeding programs. We also work with the gastronomy sector, processing industry, and we had different promotion activities throughout the country. And now I will explain each one of them. This one makes me very happy. The school feeding program in Guatemala has very strict rules for farmers to participate in them. These programs look for crops that are cheap, nutritional, and produced by small-scale farmers, but these farmers have to be able to give you an official receipt and have to be registered in an institution like IRS. And so it's very complicated. I don't know why they put that law, so many farmers cannot sell the products because they don't have an official receipt. That was one point that make us help them organize so they can be an established cooperative, have legal status, and be able to sell their products to schools and so they can give them an official receipt. So the second step was to convince the government to introduce Chaya in their school feeding program. So they had many meetings with the Ministry of Education, Agriculture, Health. So we explained it to them why Chaya should be one of their ingredients. After we convinced them that Chaya was an important ingredient, they asked me, how can we cook Chaya? And that's when ECHO and other local partners help us. In Guatemala, there is this organization, Miracles in Action. They developed a really nice recipe book, but that was not printed. And then ECHO helped us with the layout and improve the pictures, and our project paid for the printing. So it was a collaboration of all these actors. So I was able to give them the recipe book to the government, and they liked it because their recipes were very easy to follow and to do. And then they accepted Chaya in the list of the key ingredients, which is really, it makes me really happy. So every month, the schools cook 20 dishes, and Chaya is in 3 of those dishes. And Chaya is an optional ingredient in other 7, because they say you can use spinach, Chaya, or other native plants. But in 3, Chaya is a key ingredient. And also, because we had so many copies of the recipe book, we distributed to other schools, in the Ministry of Education and Agriculture, also we gave them some copies. So we have this big event where they presented all the dishes, and I was very happy to see that other schools and other farmers were using the recipes from the Chaya recipe book that Miracles in Action made. They were making like popsicles with Chaya, and it was really cool to see that with the recipe books. And we're very thankful to ECHO for helping us with that as well. The other activity we had was with the gastronomy sector, which for me, it was very, very nice interaction we had with them. We hired a chef, well-known in Guatemala, and she has this phrase that I like. She said, we have to use the kitchen as a development tool. So she introduced us to other chefs in Guatemala that they look for more than just cooking. They want to know the ingredients. They want to know where they are coming from, who are producing them. So we got a set of chefs, and we took them to Chiquimula, which is where we work. And so we let them interact with our producers. So producers can know what the chefs want, and the chefs get to know how these products are produced and how Chaya is produced and other ingredients. And the next step with this was, our goal was to give some status to Chaya, because many people see it as food of the poor, and then they don't want to eat it. So we developed some, as you can see in the pictures, like gourmet cuisine or something, like very fancy dishes, very expensive dishes in the city. And so people want, in Latin America, sometimes they say, oh, if the US wants it, it must be good, so we want it too. So in Guatemala, it's the same. If people in the city are eating it, oh, we should eat it too, so it's a little bit of psychology there, to help them. It's good. Look how expensive it is in the city. And as you can see, they look really good. So below there are the name of 2 restaurants. Those are very well-known restaurants in Guatemala City, Clios and Flor de Lis. They have Chaya now in their menus. And that's amazing, because when I got to Guatemala in 2017, you couldn't find Chaya anywhere. Now you can have them in these restaurants, which is great. And also we connect the chefs, the owners of the restaurants, with the cooperative we help establish, so they can be their suppliers. So, and they're still working on that. The third intervention we had was with the processing industry. We work with this company called Earth and Power that's based in Guatemala. This company looks for native ingredients, plants, flowers, fruits, and they produce different teas, granola, energetic drinks. So I help farmers to link with this company. And this company gave farmers dryer panel, solar? To dry Chaya, because it's hard to move Chaya from the communities to the city. It takes like 4 or 5 hours to get to the city, so it's a very long drive. So this company gave farmers this equipment, and the owner, she helped them also to learn what qualities, why you should cover your your hair and stuff, as you can see in the pictures. And what I like is, well, one problem with the dryer was that you needed electricity. And in these communities, they are in the mountains, so it's really hard to get that. So yesterday I was happy to learn about the other opportunity with the breadfruit, that they use other solar dryers. So I would want to share that information with our collaborators in Guatemala. But what I like also was farmers were so excited that they were developing other drying methods, like using the comal, that flat hut thing they have, and then they were trying to find better ways to dry chaya. And not only chaya, they have also moringa and other native plants. And in that dryer, they can also dry fruits, mangoes, and bananas. So Earth and Power wants to buy all these ingredients, not only chaya, but others. So this company has produced different products with chaya, and my favorite it's a granola a bar. It's called Choco Chaya Bar. It's really good. And she's selling these products. She also has some granola, some energy drinks that you can mix to make smoothies. So this company sells its products in more than 20 stores across Guatemala. So, and now they're still working. So my role there was just to connect them, introduce farmers to these opportunities. And it makes me really happy to know that they're still working on that. And I would like to mention that the tool that yesterday was presented from UC Davis, that small thing to measure how dry the product is, farmers are using that. And I was very happy to see it here. And for them, it's a very easy tool. It's not expensive, and they use it for all their products. So it's really exciting to learn that you helped to develop that one. Other activities we had to do with promotion. In 2018, we had this big conference. People from ECHO participated in that conference. So we wanted to present what we learned from the value chain analysis, but also we wanted to help these collaborators to network. Because what I found out in Guatemala, there were many organizations that work with Chaya, but they didn't know the other existed. So this was a great opportunity for them to know each other and collaborate. Also, we brought a person from Mexico to this conference because in Mexico they use chaya a lot. So they developed some methodologies to extract protein, fiber from chaya in the communities. So we brought someone from Mexico and we took him to the communities to show it to the farmers. So it was a really nice conference. Also, we had some press conferences. Our idea was to promote chaya, and then many newspapers published about chaya. And the picture below, that's the recipe book that ECHO helped us to print and design. We also had some promotion activities across different markets because, like I said, many people don't know what chaya is, so they don't know how it tastes. So we had some food samples, different food samples, and we distribute them in different markets, and we also distributed the recipe book. And one interesting comment I heard in these activities was this lady told me that she has chaya, but she had no idea that you could cook it that way, and it tasted that good. So she was like, oh, I don't need to buy it from anywhere. I have it in my backyard. So that was amazing. And that's the other problem with chaya, because some people know that it's only medicinal, so they don't eat it, and others, so they don't know all the properties of the plant. So that was our goal with these promotion activities, for them to taste chaya, to learn how to cook it, and learn how valuable a crop it is. We also work, thanks to our collaboration with the chefs, we got in touch with this food magazine in Guatemala. It's called Mr. Menu. And they publish every month a magazine and focus on a specific crop. So we were able to introduce chaya to them, and they did a whole number about chaya, the producers, and how you can use it. And they are very active on social networks like Facebook, Instagram. So, and they hire different chefs to try chaya to develop new recipes. The picture below is like pasta with shrimps and chaya. So they were just getting new recipes, which was great. And they shared everything on Instagram. This last activity, I was not part of it, but I'd like to mention it because I left Guatemala a year ago. But I'm still in touch with the farmers and the chef, and they became my friends, and so they tell me what's going on there. And this activity was promoted by the chef we hired, and she got in touch with that magazine, Mr. Menu, and they went to the communities to make a video about how the cooperative was formed, how they are doing, how they are processing chai and other native plants, and to understand how that helped them to connect to markets better. And that made me really happy because I left Guatemala and that's still going on, right? That's, I guess, everyone's dream when you get in a country, in a specific site that live and to see that your work is still going on. So it makes me really happy. But one interesting thing I want to comment about this is that that whole activity was funded by Tigo. I don't know if you know what Tigo is. It's a big telephone company in Latin America. And they pay for it, and I was like, why are they paying for it? Because these companies now, that they have the social responsibility in their missions, and for them it's very important to promote these things. So Tigo paid for everything, and makes me really happy to see that things still going on in Guatemala after the project left. So I would like also to mention the importance of the private sector. Right now I'm working in Mexico, and we're working with private companies like Walmart Foundation, Kellogg's, Nestle, because they focus on responsible sourcing. They want to buy products that are responsible produced, sustainable produced with conservation agriculture. So they want to, for instance, Kellogg promotes that the cornflakes you get has been produced from these small-scale farmers in Mexico following conservation agriculture. So now my role in Mexico is kind of similar like in Guatemala. I'm just the link between farmers and the markets, finding these opportunities and help them to reach them. And I think it's great that the private sector now is working on this, and the responsible sourcing is really good about that. So some concluding remarks. So this research was one of the first of its kind about Chaya in Guatemala. There were no studies about marketing or selling Chaya, which is, I think, a great contribution to this part. So understanding Chaya and what happened helped us to design better interventions. And I think the way that project was designed was very important because it helped us to do the research and then use that information to do some things, right? That's why for me it was, from all the jobs I had, that was the one that makes me really happy because I was able to do something and take some actions, right? And help farmers to connect to farmers, help them to increase their income, their nutrition, and it makes me more happy to see that that's still going on after we left. So as you can see, Chaya is a very promising plant, but still we need to work more on that, and not only Chaya, other crops. But we have to be aware of one thing that has happened with quinoa. I think quinoa is a great example. Quinoa was neglected. No one wanted to eat it in the Andes. Now it's very expensive. And the disadvantage of that is most producers in Bolivia, they rather sell all their quinoa than eating it. And with the money they get from that, they don't eat better. They buy Coca-Cola and chips. And so there is a risk there. Even though they increase their income, they are not eating better. So I like that case because we want farmers to sell Chaya, but we also want them to improve their nutrition. So we have to be careful with that. So one thing we did, we worked a lot with farmers, was to explain them why Chaya was important in their diets and how they should consume it, that they should consume it first, and then if they have a surplus, sell it. And the processing industry in Guatemala, Earth and Power, that's part of their mission as well. They don't buy everything. They buy at least half of what they have to sell, which is good because then they stay with some part of this crop so they can eat it and have it for their kids. So Chaya, I think, is considered a superfood, and I think there is a great opportunity for Chaya in other parts of the world. During my research, I contacted companies in Africa, in South Africa. I was surprised that many countries in Africa have Chaya. there's a company in South Africa that they sell pills and different products with Chaya. And this year I was contacted by a company through ECO in France. They want to sell Chaya, like tea bags and energy drinks, but they needed to get approval like FDA, but in Europe. So I was helping them to fill out the forms. But the interesting thing is that they source Chaya from Africa, not from Guatemala or Mexico. And he didn't know that producers in these countries could produce so much Chaya because the company in Africa produces a lot. So I'm also trying to convince him to buy Chaya from our farmers in Guatemala, but still, we're still working on that. So like I said, I'm not there, but I'm still thinking about them. And yesterday I learned a lot in the fair, and I want to share that information with our collaborators in Guatemala. The dryer that was presented yesterday, I think is a great opportunity for them, so it's very interesting. Well, some recommendations. At Bioversity, they have this approach that's integrated and a holistic approach. They don't only focus on, on the production and all the links to the market, but also on the input side, develop or introduce new varieties, improve varieties. Like I said, Chaya, there are 4 varieties of Chaya, and in that area they use mostly Chaya mansa. But Chaya Estrella, the other variety, is the one that produces more, has higher productivity levels and higher nutritional content. So we were helping to have some seed banks and take care of that variety and introduce it again to that area because it was almost no farmers had that variety. And like I said before, it's important to work with the private sector because I think we have to take advantage of the responsible sourcing that they have, the mission that they are including in their objectives, to source from farmers and help them improve their income. The project in Mexico where I'm working now, I'm being paid by Walmart, and I didn't know Walmart had that part in their mission, right? So in Mexico, we're helping farmers to sell maize of different colors. The problem there is that they are disappearing, these varieties. So we're working with seed banks, so that's my point, to introduce the whole value in a holistic way, introduce new varieties and recover them. And in these activities, it's very important to improve women's empowerment because they are the ones who take care of these crops. And thanks to them, they're still here and not disappearing. So finally, I would like to thank all the communities that helped us and participated in our work in Guatemala. It was a great experience, and I wish I could go back. And our local partners, they were great. University de Guatemala and Mancomunidad. Well, that's all I have to say. Thank you. And,